Good afternoon, I'm Staci Berger. I'm the President and CEO of the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. We're the statewide association of more than 270 nonprofit community development organizations, private sector lenders, and housing champions working to make sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home. This bill will dramatically reduce our ability to do that. Many of you have worked with us. I was here for many, many hours, not that long ago, working with all of you to pass a really landmark housing bill that not everybody here supported, but everybody here worked to make as good as it could possibly be. Passing this bill out of this committee today will directly hamper our homelessness service providers' ability to do their jobs. Many of you call our office and ask for help for your constituents. Instead of being able to help them, we will have to be finding attorneys to both protect those service providers because they run the risk of being sued, and also to get lawyers for them to be able to get the records they need to do their jobs. I cannot implore you enough, please do not do this bill this way today. I am a little bit, I've been doing this just a little bit longer than Mike Sarah, which is hard to believe, but true. I was part of the original group of people who wrote and drafted and passed the original Open Public Records Act 22 years ago. I sat in the room, I was part of the negotiating team. Many of the changes you are making are just completely in opposition and anathema to the entire intent of the bill. We are happy to work with you. Assemblyman Danielson is also my representative. I have tried to reach him many times to speak with him about this bill. I have not been responded to, both as a personal constituent of his and also as the head of a large organization that represents many of the community organizations that all of you care about and support. I know that you don't want your nonprofit members to be spending hard-earned philanthropic dollars to protect homeless people from being sued for getting records that they need. A large portion of our work is now focused on neighborhood empowerment and safety training. We need public safety data to be able to do that work. We cannot get that under the bill that you are considering today. Please do not hamper neighborhoods and community leaders from being able to develop neighborhood revitalization and safety plans by passing this bill out of this committee today. Do not do that to the organizations that you have worked really hard to help amplify and lift up. Instead of being able to help our community organizations and housing developers get land use decisions, minutes, there are some towns that don't put their minutes on a website. You have to file an Open Public Records Act request. My town, where I live in Piscataway, did not used to do that. We had to pass a ballot ordinance to get minutes and agendas public. Every single time you wanted an agenda, you had to file an Open Public Records Act request, and that took 7 days. So by the time you got the request, the thing was over. I understand that, but that's my time as Assemblywoman, and I just want to say, I have a tremendous amount of respect and have worked with many of you for many, many years. You've come to our events. Assemblyman Knopf and I worked, communicated about the People's Bill during the pandemic. It was really a refreshing conversation that we've had. I believe that you want to do the right thing. The right thing is to not move this bill today. Please do not do this. Please. Thank you for your testimony.
Through you, Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Berger, just, can you describe in a little more detail the public safety information that your organizations pursue and how this bill would inhibit?
Sure. So our many of our neighborhood organizations participate in what's called the Neighborhood Empowerment and Safety Training. It's a re-envisioning of what used to be called the Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design tool. It was a little heavy-handed with police, frankly, and so we redesigned it so that it really involved community engagement and was more of a broken windows approach. We request data, our members, and we request data from the police departments in many communities to see where there are lots of issues that are coming up, where there are, where there are arrest reports, where there are reports of criminal activity, where there are reports of people feeling unsafe, or struggling to find housing in those neighborhoods. Excuse me. So we need that data, and we won't be able to get it. Okay, you look like you want to.
No, I'm anticipating.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. If we're not going to be able to get that data, I can't ask our organization or my staff or organizations that we work with in Patterson or Newark. We've done a couple. We're about to do another one in Camden. We can't ask people to file a request that they may not even be able to get because it might be too vague or it might be too specific. It's hard to know. There's like a Goldilocks spot there, and as someone who's been using OPRA and wrote the law, helped write the law 22 years ago, I don't know what I'm supposed to put in an OPRA under this bill. So I don't know what to tell those folks to ask for, because they need to know exactly what they're looking for. And a lot of what OPRA does is let you look at a pattern or a series of emails or a series of documents, and you can pick out, okay, well this happened on this day, so let me go back and look at the minutes from that meeting, from that session. There's just, it gives you it's not a huge, you can't cast like a huge net with OPRA, but you can cast a fairly wide net so you can get a lot of information and create a pattern of what's happening in the neighborhood or community. It depends on the request, and it depends on the requestor for what they're looking for, but it's not, this is very, very, very restrictive and basically makes it impossible to do.
Cheryl, so you don't request crime statistics? Is that what you're saying?
I
mean, you might request crime statistics, but you're not talking about crime statistics now. You're talking about something else, it sounds like.
Well, we're talking about anything that might happen in the neighborhood that would be of concern, and how many streetlights have been called in a community for being out? Is there a particular area where the lighting has been a complaint over and over and over again? So we would want to walk that block or walk those blocks with neighborhood residents and community leaders, but I don't know where that is necessarily. We need to see some data. I'm not the person that runs the program, but we look at what kinds of complaints come in. Absolutely. It's not just crime. It's not only or just crime. There's all kinds of neighborhood issues that we like to see.
Sure. And you feel like you wouldn't be able to ask those questions now under
the current law, sure. But not under the bill you're considering today.
And why is that?
For the numerous reasons that many of my colleagues have already enumerated, but I will say it again.
Put aside the fee issue. I understand the fee shifting issue.
Sure.
I think is
The threat of a lawsuit.
The threat of a lawsuit if one asks too many, makes too many
Correct.
requests.
Yeah, we ask a lot of questions, and sometimes we have to go back and ask them a second time because we didn't ask them right the first time. I don't know what the standard here is very nebulous.
All right, so it's the fee shift and the threat of the application to the court to kind of tamp down on abuse.
And the specificity issue. You have to ask just the right thing. The porridge can't be too hot, it can't be too cold, it has to be just right. And I don't know how to do that under this law. As someone who helped write the law and has been using it both personally and professionally for more than 2 decades, this makes it impossible.
I'm only an occasional user of OPRA, but there's a degree of specificity that has to be used.
Sure, you have to use it. Right, that's what I said before. You have to say, you have to ask for a certain person's name or a certain person's email or a topic. You can't just say, give me every email that Senator Weber ever sent to anybody. It has to have a time frame or a topic or a relevant, some keyword. There has to be keywords in it.
But you perceive a different standard in this bill.
Yes, and I think my colleague from the League of Women Voters really articulated it extremely well, so I didn't want to go, because I was trying to be conscious of the time.
Well, I asked you questions.
No.
Now you get more time.
Right. Fantastic.
The chairwoman loves that trick.
I appreciate that we're all here on
Mr.
Friday
Richards would
afternoon.
like that trick too. I was gonna
You have to know exactly what you're looking for under the way that this is written. And it's a huge burden, especially for nonprofits and for folks in communities who are under-resourced and maybe need additional assistance, and then you can just be rejected. And then if you go back and try to ask the question a second time, well, now are you going to trigger being sued? Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't say in the bill. It's very, very, very amorphous. And when we worked really hard to get the legislation to where it was in 2002, this was an issue. How much can you ask for? How much can you not ask for? You can't get stuff that is not already a record. So we don't want to make more work for custodians, but we have to be able to ask for something with some breadth, because otherwise we're not going to be able to get anything. And every time we ask, we're going to be told we're asking too much. So then I'm not going to put my staff or our community organizations and partners at risk of being sued, and then I'm going to have to go raise money that I could be using to help house homeless people to pay a custodian who thinks we're asking too much. It's an impossible situation you're putting us in. Please do not do this.
Sure. May I?
Because I have other questions.
I appreciate it. I'm so glad I raise my hand first. Or at least you recognize me first. You were there helping to draft the bill in 2002. You agree that times have changed, we've learned lessons, the bill shouldn't be the same as it was in 2002, I imagine.
Sure,
Okay.
we can absolutely make it better.
So how do we make it better? What would you do if you were back as an admin woman?
I would talk to CJ Griffin because they use this more than anybody else and knows this. There's been no negotiation on this legislation.
Between the process, but substantively, what would you do to make it better? I mean,
I would restore the fee shifting immediately.
No. What would you, the existing bill today,
I'm sorry, I thought you wanted
the existing law, OPRA, how would you make it better?
I mean, I think we can do a couple of things. Sorry, take my glasses off. So making, I have used OPRA a whole lot. I don't think it needs a ton of work. I think the commercial piece is a really simple fix, and that is not even in this bill. And that's the main complaint that we've heard over and over and over again from custodians is that the selling of the information. When our first dog passed away, we got a second dog. We licensed the dog. Do that, and then we got like 27,000, flea and tick, advertisements and all that stuff for a fence. And I mean, it was bothersome, but it wasn't like the end of the world. I think we could look at dealing with the commercial requesters in a much different way than the way that we deal with residents, nonprofits, members of the public. And that's the main thing we didn't really anticipate. I think we can also use technology. I mean, the OPRA machine that is available, that is run by essentially nonprofit, is a great service. We could make a lot of this stuff just as of right public record. Just put it on the internet. I mean, the internet is a very big place. We can put a lot of stuff there, and it would be cheaper and more effective if we could just look stuff up ourselves.
That is part of the bill.
It's not that. I mean, that's. Well, someone was asking me what. I'm sorry.
No. We like to double team.
It's fine. I'm happy to. I mean, there are lots of ways. There are ways that we can address the commercial piece of this and the as of right piece. I didn't see that in this bill, but he was asking. I thought what was not in this bill that we should be.
Yeah, how would you improve the bill? So I appreciate it, Chairwoman. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Assemblywoman. Chair, actually kind of scary. I was going to ask the same exact question as this
That's
Mr.
scary.
Weber. Like this mind melt thing that's happening here. So
The Assemblywoman has so much more in common than she believes.
Well, if 81% of the public thinks this isn't a great idea, I think a lot of us have a lot in common, and we should lean into that and try to support it.
I'd like to have someone else.
Oh, yeah, I'm just trying to. I'm not trying to.
Do you have a question for this
Yes.
witness?
One quick.
Okay.
Ms. Berger, thank you for your testimony tonight. Just from your own personal experience, I mean, it sounds like it's extensive, and we should be tapping into that, I think, in this process. Do you feel it would be easier just to amend and correct the current bill as it stands now, rather than trying to just rework the whole thing like we're doing here? In other words, just you find the inefficiencies, the flaws, you just correct them with the current bill with small tweaks of legislation rather than just one broad sweeping piece of legislation like this?
If I understand your question correctly, through the chair, you're asking if I think we should just tweak the current law? Not
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so I just want to make sure. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm short and you're tall, and so we're doing this little dance where we can't really see each other over the lights. But yes, I think that this bill could go right in the trash, and we could just start over by making very small changes to address the actual concerns that are valid. And I think most custodians want to do the right thing. There are some that have not done the right thing in some cases, but what we really need to do is address the main issue, which as far as I had heard up until 3 months ago, was really the commercial broker issue. And this bill does not address that, and instead penalizes regular people, working people, parents, active residents, for asking to have access to what they pay for as taxpayers. And so instead of doing this travesty, we could make changes. I'd be happy to work with any or all of you. However, whatever you need from us to get good language, we would happily give you. Let us help you do this well. We can do this. Many of us want to see the changes that we've talked about, making the bill making the process more accessible, more just less expensive and less cumbersome. But as someone who has used OPRA the entire time it's been in effect, I don't have a lot of complaints about it, except that sometimes it takes a long time for the custodian to get back to you. But otherwise, thank you.
The reason I the reason I asked that question was I was looking at some polling and some surveys that rank New Jersey as like one of the top 2 OPRA states in the nation, and so I just thought we have a model that seems to be revered by some people, and why would we want to just break the whole thing apart and just make the tweaks that are necessary?
I have no idea, Assemblyman, and it's an excellent question. Why are we doing this? Why are you all here on a Friday afternoon to gut our pretty successful state law? This is a good law. We did a good thing 22 years ago. Don't break it.